Singapore rock culture. After an emotional roller coaster, it's time for the party to start in earnest, and I can't think of a better way than to sing along with our favorite National Day tunes, accompanied by the pops and whistles of fireworks lighting up a magnificent skyline. So go ahead wherever you are, at home with family and friends, in the car, overseas even. This is your time to soak it all in, sing it loud, and sing it proud.
Madam Halima Yacob, our president, will now take her leave. Please put your hands together to wish her a very good night.
President Halima Yacob taking her leave. What a
But I don't think you want me to lengthen my speeches. Instead, I'll divide up my topics among my Malay, Chinese, and English speeches. The topics in these three speeches will not overlap, but they are all important subjects, and all of them are addressed to all Singaporeans. So what I say in Malay and Chinese is also meant for those who don't speak Malay and Chinese, and for those who are not Malay or not Chinese. So I ask you, please treat my Malay and Chinese speeches as if I've also said the same things in English. Now let me start as usual in the national language. Saudara-saudari sekalian,
My
selamat
fellow
Hari Kebangsaan.
Singaporeans, happy National Day.
Tahun ini kita memperingati 200
This year,
tahun Singapura.
we are commemorating our
Saya
bicentennial.
gembira melihat banyak kumpulan masyarakat
I'm happy to see
menganjurkan
many
pelbagai
community groups
aktiviti
organizing various
untuk
activities
menyimbas kembali
to look
kekayaan
back
sejarah
at
negara
our rich
kita
history,
sepanjang beberapa abad.
going back several
Sebagai
centuries.
contoh, April lalu,
For example,
kumpulan pentas
in
karyawan
April,
Politeknik Republik
Republic Polytechnic's
mempersembahkan
Pentas
Kurun
Karyawan
Yang
group
Hilang,
staged
kisah
Kurun Yang
tentang
Hilang,
kerajaan Singapura pada
that
abad
centers
ke-14.
around the kingdom of Singapura in the
Pada
14th
Oktober ini
century.
akan datang.
This
Taman
coming
Warisan
October,
Melayu juga akan mengadakan
the Malay
satu
Heritage
pesta dan
Centre
pameran khas
is also organizing a
yang
festival
menceritakan kepelbagaian
and a special
asal-usul
exhibition
masyarakat
to
Melayu.
showcase the diverse origins of our
Orang
Malay
Melayu
community.
tiba secara beramai-ramai di Singapura.
The
sejak
Malays came
kedatangan
to
Stamford
Singapore
Raffles.
in large numbers
Mereka
after the
termasuklah
arrival
orang
of
Laos,
Stamford Raffles.
Orang
They
Melayu
included
dari Johor
orang
dan
Laut,
Riau, orang
the
Minang,
Malays
Bugis,
from Johor and Riau,
orang Jawa,
the Minang, Bugis, the Javanese,
Bawean, serta
the
orang
Baweanese,
Arab dari Yaman dan
plus
sebahagian orang
the Arabs
dari
from
India.
Yemen and some people from India.
Ini dia gambar sebuah keluarga Bawean
This
pada
is a
awal
picture
abad
of a
ke-20
Bawean
dengan
family
pakaian tradisional
in
mereka.
the early 20th century, dressed in
sebagai
their
orang Boyan.
traditional garb.
Mereka
Known as the
berasal dari
Boyanese,
Pulau Bawean,
they were originally from
Jawa
Pulau
Timur.
Bawean in East
Tapi
Java.
orang putih pelat ya, jadi Bawean jadi Boyan.
But because of the English pronunciation,
Bawean
the Bawean became
sangat
Boyan.
akrab.
The
dan
Baweanese
dahulu tinggal
are
berkelompok
a
di
tight-knit
pondok-pondok
group who
seperti di
used to
kawasan
live
Rochor dan
communally
Tanjung
in
Pagar.
pondoks in area like Rocho
Orang Bawean
and
sudah
Tanjung
sebati
Pagar.
menjadi sebahagian daripada orang Melayu.
Now
di
they
Singapura.
have become very much a part of the larger Malay
Begitu juga
community
dengan suku kaum lain.
and indeed of Singapore too. That is
Pertalian
also the
budaya
case
dan
of other
sejarah
ethnic
anda
groups.
dengan negara-negara jiran kita.
Your cultural and historical ties with our neighboring countries enabled Singapore to understand and get along with the peoples of these countries. At the same time, your influence on Singapore society helped shape our national identity as a multiracial country in Southeast Asia.
Sepanjang waktu itu, orang Melayu Singapura
In this
berjaya
process,
membina identiti
Singapore
yang
Malays have been able to develop
berbeza
your
daripada
own
orang
unique
Melayu lain di
identity,
rantau ini.
and you have become distinct from other Malays in the region and from Muslims elsewhere in the world. Just from the way you speak, you can tell,
Orang Melayu Singapura.
this is a Singaporean Malay.
Identiti ini didorong beberapa nilai murni. Baru-baru ini, Menteri Masagos menyebutnya
There are
sebagai
several
tiga
characteristics that shape the Singapore Malay identity.
kewarganegaraan,
Mr. Masagos
kemahiran,
recently described them as the
dan
three C's:
kepribadian.
citizenry, competency,
Malam ini
and
saya akan
character.
sentuh tentang dua K.
Tonight I
Kemahiran,
will talk about two
yaitu
C's,
kesedaran
which
tentang
is
pentingnya
competency
pendidikan
and the
bagi
realization
meningkatkan
on the
masyarakat
importance of education in uplifting the community,
kepribadian,
and character,
yaitu bagaimana
which
Islam
you have
diamalkan dalam
formed
konteks
through the way you practice your religion
majmuk Singapura.
in our multiracial context.
Pertama, kemahiran atau
First,
pendidikan.
competency or
Hasil
education.
daripada penekanan terhadap pendidikan, kemajuan orang Melayu
Our Malay
semakin
community
bertaraf.
has progressed because of your
Generasi demi
emphasis on
generasi,
education.
Kita lihat kian ramai orang Melayu berkelayakan lebih tinggi dengan pekerjaan
Each
yang
successive
lebih baik,
generation of Malays
serta
have
mutu
been
hidup
better
yang lebih
educated
makmur
and
dan bermakna.
thus held better jobs and led more prosperous and meaningful lives compared to the previous generation. As the idiom goes, bit by bit, it will become a hill, and perhaps even a mountain.
Banyak contoh yang boleh saya sebutkan.
I can cite many examples.
Seperti dalam gambar tahun 2007.
As you can see from this photograph taken in 2007, we all look young.
Penerima anugerah mendaki yang lulus
The
dengan
number
ijazah
of
kepujian
Anugerah
kelas
Mendaki or
pertama
Mendaki Awards recipients who
Hanya 7
graduated
orang
with first-class honours
Tapi
was
lihat
only
gambar
7.
ini
But
yang
look at
diambilkan
this
tahun
picture
lalu pula.
taken last year.
Jumlahnya lebih 70
There were
orang.
70
Jadi
people.
dalam masa 10 tahun saja,
In a matter of
jumlahnya
just 10
melonjak
years,
naik.
there has been a tenfold increase.
Melonjak naik 10 kali ganda.
It went up
Bas masyarakat
10 times. Well done to the Malay community.
Terbukti generasi muda Melayu cemerlang.
It's proven a younger generation of outstanding Malays are now holding important positions in the community. Among them, several are scholarship recipients, including the CE of MUIS, the Mufti, as well as their deputies.
Dan tahun ini seorang anak Melayu
And this year,
Muhammad Dafar, Muhammad
we have a
Faisal,
Malay president
dianugerahkan
scholars,
beasiswa presiden.
Muhammad Dafar, Muhammad Faisal.
Dafar bukan sahaja cemerlang
Dafar
dari segi akademik,
not
tetapi
only
juga
excels
berjiwa masyarakat.
academically, but also has a heart
Masa
for the
lapangnya,
community.
Dafar
In his
melakukan
free time,
kerja
Dafar gets involved in volunteer
Ini
work,
Dafar ketika membantu
Here he is,
adik-adik di rumah kanak-kanak Pertapis.
helping children at the Pertapis Children's Home with their homework.
Kepada Dafar's keluarga,
To
termasuk
Dafir
bapaknya,
and his
SPS Faisal
family,
Ibrahim,
including his
tahniah.
father, SPS Faisal Ibrahim, congratulations.
Dan datuknya juga ya.
And his grandfather as well.
Lebih ramai ibu bapa Melayu kini sedar perlunya
More Malay parents now realize the need to send their children to preschool
kerana ia memberi mereka
because
permulaan
they
yang
understand the importance of providing their children with a good foundation before
Dan
entering
semakin ramai
primary
ibu
school.
bapa Melayu
And
bersama
more
anak-anak
Malay
mereka
parents and their
menyertai
children
program
are also
KMM
attending the
atau
KMM
kelas
or
matematika
class
di CC,
Matematica
Anjura
at CC,
M+3.
organized by organizations
Akan tetapi,
under
lebih baik
MQ.
lagi jika ibu bapa
However, it would
mula
be
menghantar
even
anak
better
mereka
if more
bagi
parents
pendidikan prasekolah
send their children to
pada usia
preschool
yang lebih
even
awal,
earlier,
seperti 3 atau 4 tahun.
from the ages of 3 or 4.
Kami telah memperbaiki mutu pendidikan prasekolah.
We have improved
dan
the quality
memastikan
of
kos
preschools
kekal
and has
berpatutan.
ensured it is more affordable.
Sebenarnya, dengan sokongan pemerintah,
Actually, with
iuran
the
tadaka
government
dan
support,
tadika sepenuh hari bagi
the cost
anak
of
dari keluarga
full-day
kurang
nursery
mampu
or
boleh
kindergarten
$11
for a needy
$3
family
sahaja.
can be as low as $3.
sebulan ya, bukan sehari.
$3 a month, not a day.
Kami akan memastikan juga
We will
bahawa
also
pendidikan
ensure
prasekolah
that the
kekal
preschool
dimampuni oleh
education
keluarga bergaji
remain
menengah.
affordable for the middle
Saya akan
income
berkongsi lebih
families.
lanjut dalam ucapan bahasa
I will
Inggeris
elaborate
saya
more on
sebentar
this
lagi.
in my English speech later.
Pelajar Melayu juga menunjukkan keputusan yang lebih baik.
Malay students are
sepanjang
also
sekolah
showing
mereka.
better results in
Lebih
schools.
ramai anak Melayu kini meraih diploma
More
dan
Malay
ijazah
students
sarjana
now
muda.
graduate with diplomas and degrees compared to before.
Selepas tamat ITE atau
Some are
politeknik.
upgrading their skills after
Ini
completing
membantu mereka
ITE or
maju
polytechnic.
meniti tangga kerjaya.
This will help them climb the career ladder and gives them more career options.
Contohnya Muhammad Abdillah.
For example, Muhammad Abdullah, shown in this picture.
Abdillah gagal.
He failed his PSLE twice.
Beliau kemudian belajar di sekolah
He then went on to study at
Pada
Northlight
hari
School.
pertamanya di Northlight, ketika
On his
ditanya
first day at Northlight,
tentang cita-cita
Abdullah was asked what was his ambition.
pereka designer.
He said designer.
Jauh di lubuk hatinya, Abdillah tidak
Deep in his
akan
heart,
boleh
Abdullah
mencapai
doubted that he would ever achieve his dream. But encouraged by his teachers, he excelled at Northlight and went on to ITE to study animation. In ITE, Abdullah did very well and went on to Nanyang Polytechnic, where he obtained
Mari kita lihat petikan
a diploma
montaj
in
karya
motion
Abdullah.
graphics. Let us see a montage of Abdullah's work.
Menarik sekali ya.
Very impressive.
Saya yakin
I am confident Abdullah will be a successful graphics designer. Well done, Abdullah.
Abdullah tidak sendirian.
Abdullah is not
Ramai
alone.
lagi lulusan ITE
A
yang
large
meningkatkan
proportion
diri
of
mereka.
ITE graduates
Ini sangat
go
penting
on to upgrade
kerana
themselves.
permintaan bagi
This is
pekerja
important
dengan kemahiran
because the
dan
demand for
pengetahuan
workers
yang
with
tinggi
better skills and knowledge is ever rising.
di kalangan pelajar ITE.
Among
Daripada setiap 10
ITE students,
kini
7 in 10 of them upgrade over the course of their careers.
perangkaan ini 7 daripada 10 sangat baik.
This is a good statistic, but it would be even better if we can make it 10 out of 10.
Kementerian Pendidikan akan umumkan
MOE
lebih
will
banyak
soon
peluang
announce
bagi pelajar
expanded
ITE
pathways
meningkatkan diri.
for ITE students to upgrade themselves.
Kenyataannya, lebih ramai pelajar
In general,
kini layak
most
masuk
students
politeknik
are
dan universiti.
making it to polytechnics and universities,
Bukan dari
and many of them do not come from well-off families.
Kami akan pastikan
Therefore,
bahawa yuran
we must
politeknik
ensure
dan
that the fees of our polytechnics and universities are as affordable as possible, even for the poorest families.
keluarga kurang mampu. Saya akan terangkan lebih lanjut
I will
ucapan bahasa Inggeris.
elaborate more on this later in my English speech.
Satu lagi tunggak masyarakat Melayu ialah
Another pillar of our Malay community is your religious belief.
adalah antara agama yang ulung di dunia.
Islam is one of the great religions of the world.
Kedamaian
It is
dan menjadi
a
agama
religion of
hampir
peace
2
with
bilion
almost
di seluruh
2
dunia.
billion followers around the globe.
Masyarakat Islam di negara-negara dunia mengamalkan
Different
Islam
Muslim
mengikut
communities
sejarah dan tradisi
practice
masing-masing.
Islam in different ways, depending on their histories and traditions. In Singapore's plural society, Islam is practiced in a spirit of mutual respect, tolerance, and inclusiveness.
Asatiza kita berperan
Our
penting
Asatisa play a central role in nurturing a progressive Muslim community.
Salah seorang asatiza dengan ciri-ciri ini ialah
One Asatiza who exemplifies this is Ustaz Zahid Zain. As the CEO of the Muslim Youth Forum MYF, he takes a fresh approach in his religious classes.
Ini termasuk mengundang
This
orang
includes
bukan Islam
inviting non-Muslims to share their views
dengan belia Islam.
with Muslim youths.
Timbalan Perdana Menteri Heng Swee Keat pernah mengambil
Deputy
bahagian
Prime Minister Heng Swee
dalam
Keat
salah satu sesi.
participated in one such dialogue.
Bukan setakat itu sahaja. Ustaz Zahid juga aktif.
Beyond that, Ustaz Zahid also takes an active part in Masra-led activities and serves on the M-Cube Advisory Council.
Baru-baru ini, saudaranya seorang bukan
Recently, one of his distant relatives,
Ustaz Zahid
a non-Muslim,
menziarahi
passed
keluarga
away.
saudaranya.
Ustaz Zahid visited the family to convey his last respects.
Cara itu mengikut agama Buddha.
The wake was conducted in the
Dalam
Buddhist
catatannya di
tradition.
Facebook, Ustaz Zahid menulis
On his Facebook
bagaimana
post,
semua budaya
Ustaz
dan
Zahid
kepercayaan
wrote how
mesti
all
dihormati
cultures and beliefs must be
dan
respected,
pengalamannya itu merupakan
and how
titik
his
berharga.
experience will become a valuable, teachable moment for his children.
Sebenarnya,
Actually,
ia satu pengajaran
it was
untuk
a
kita semua.
teachable moment
Tidak
for
kira
all of
apa
us,
kepercayaan kita.
whatever our religion or our age.
Tahun lalu, Ustaz Zahid menerima
Last year,
anugerah
Ustaz
Perdana
Zahid received the Muiz 50 Inspiring Youth
beliau
Award.
akan terus menjadi sumber
I hope he will
inspirasi
continue
kepada
to
kita
inspire all of us.
Boleh Ustaz Zahid?
Can Ustaz Zahid?
Tentu boleh.
Definitely.
Kita mahu golongan asatiza yang bermutu tinggi.
We want our asatiza to maintain high standards and be confident leaders in the future. Dr. Maliki Osman is leading a committee to review ways to enhance their professionalism as a way to build on the Asatiza Recognition Scheme or ARS. I am looking forward to their recommendations.
MUIS memainkan peranan penting dalam masyarakat Melayu Islam Singapura.
MUIS plays a crucial role in our Malay Muslim community. Next year, MUIS will launch the Postgraduate Certificate in Islam in Contemporary Societies or PCICS. This course is for religious teachers who were educated overseas and returning home. It is meant to train them in the application of what they have learned overseas to our Singapore context. We also hope to explore new approaches and pedagogies in the teaching and learning of Islam. This will help us develop a model of our own Islamic college, which will one day train a new generation of Asatiza in Singapore. Because of our success in building harmonious racial and religious relations, the Malay Muslims here are well regarded and they are also a model for other Muslim and minority communities. Recently, we organized an international conference on cohesive societies or ICCS. Our scholars and practitioners had the opportunity to exchange ideas with their foreign counterparts. This conference served as a reminder to many of us that we should persevere in strengthening our religious harmony, even as race and religion are often causing serious conflicts in many other societies. Ladies and gentlemen, you can all be proud of your achievements. Over several centuries, you have built a strong community and enriched our history. The Malay community has progressed together with the nation. Now, as Malays, you hold on strongly to your own distinct identity. At the same time, you have integrated with other communities and have a sense of shared citizenry as the sons and daughters of Singapore. The bicentennial is an opportunity for all of us to mark the contributions of the Malay community and celebrate your achievements. I am confident you will continue to progress year after year. The government will be with you every step of the way, supporting your aspirations so you can continue to be a community of success. Thank you.
Good evening.
This
year marks Singapore's bicentennial. 1819 was a turning point in our history. Raffles landed in Singapore that year and established a free port that attracted immigrants from Southeast Asia, India, and China to seek their fortunes here. Many of our Chinese forefathers came from Guangdong, Chaoshan, and Fujian. Some came from nearer places like Penang, Malacca, and the Riau Islands. Many started as laborers. They worked very hard, barely able to make ends meet. In the end, many settled down and built their lives here. Some started small businesses. The better educated among them became teachers and journalists. Some became plantation owners, founders of banks, and traders. You could say they were our founding generation and they contributed much to Singapore. The leaders among them set up clan associations and trade associations to help people from their hometowns integrate and establish their businesses. These Daogeis, or big bosses, also rallied the Chinese community to help build hospitals, schools, and temples for the benefit of the community by contributing their time and money. Our forefathers maintained close links with their motherland at the time. They had arrived in Nanyang as sojourners. They intended to return to China one day. They were still people of China then, and they were passionate about their hometowns and motherland. Many participated in the political movements in China and gave their lives to the revolution and wars there. Over 100 years ago, Dr. Sun Yat-sen set up the Tongmeng Hui. Its Southeast Asian headquarters was established in Singapore. The Tongmeng Hui dedicated its efforts to overthrowing the Qing government. Several armed uprisings were planned at Wanqingyuan. In the 1930s, when Japan invaded China, the Chinese community in Singapore again organized themselves, joining the anti-Japanese movement. A prominent Chinese community leader, Tan Kah-ki, led the efforts to raise funds and organize volunteers to support the Chinese in the war. These included the Nanyang Transport Volunteers who returned to China to fight. That was one reason why the Japanese carried out the Sukching operation after they captured Singapore, to take revenge on tens of thousands of Chinese people here. After World War II, the People's Republic of China was established. Against that historical backdrop, many passionate, idealistic young people in Southeast Asia were inspired by the founding of the People's Republic of China and joined local anti-colonial struggles in Southeast Asia. By that time, the identity of the overseas Chinese had become ambiguous. They were here in Nanyang physically, but for some, their hearts were in China. As a result, their loyalty was questioned, and this engendered distrust of China among Southeast Asian countries. From the 1950s, China itself started to distinguish between overseas Chinese who were 海外华侨, or the overseas Chinese nationals, and Huaren, who were the ethnic Chinese. 海外华侨 referred to overseas Chinese who retained their Chinese nationality. Huaren were ethnic Chinese who had taken up their host country's citizenship. Then Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai stated clearly that once they took up citizenship in their country of residence, they would no longer hold Chinese citizenship and should be loyal to their adopted country. Our forefathers had to make a major decision. Either they remained in Singapore or they returned to the motherland. In the end, the majority chose to remain in Singapore, and together with the other races, they built a multiracial society in an independent country. In the 1960s, as Singapore progressed towards independence, the Chinese community groups here worked with the government to drive Singapore's social and economic developments and build up our national defense. In 1967, to encourage the Chinese community to support the newly implemented national service, the Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry, SCCCI, presented the first two batches of national service recruits with medallions. From 1967, not mine because I was too young then. It was borrowed from SCCCI. I can't tell exactly what is printed on it, but the front of the medallion over here displays the crescent moon and 5 stars representing Singapore and the letters SCCCI. This was in 1967. The back of the medallion was engraved with the words National Service and 尽忠报国, which means dedication and loyalty to the country. This was a limited edition medallion with high commemorative value. In 1968, the government established the National Defense Fund to encourage citizens to donate to the cause of building up our national defense. The fundraising target was $10 million, and SCCCI alone raised more than $1 million for the fund. This showed that the local Chinese community had by then begun to see themselves as Singaporean citizens and had transferred their loyalty to Singapore. As we can see, the Chinese Singaporean identity formed gradually over more than 200 years. Our forefathers' dedication to their motherland is noble, and that spirit is something we should remember. To commemorate their deeds, we made Wan Qingyuan a national monument, and we installed a sculpture there to remember the Nanyang Transport Volunteers. This was more than 10 years ago when we did that. Similarly, to honor those who perished in the Second World War, on the 15th of February every year, all races attend the ceremony at the Civilian War Memorial. We honor those who came from different races who lost their lives and fought during the war. The tragic experience of the Japanese occupation inspired our collective national consciousness and made us determined to achieve self-rule. Malay and Indian Singaporeans have similar stories to tell about the development of their identities. They too came to Singapore as sojourners. During the period of the anti-colonial struggle, the Indians here were inspired by India's struggle for independence, and the Malays by the nationalist movements in Indonesia and Malaya. In fact, our battle cry then, Merdeka, was originally the slogan of the independence movements in Indonesia and Malaya. But despite the links they had then to their motherlands, the local Malays, Indians, and Eurasians, just like the Chinese, progressively sank their roots here. And together, we developed a Singaporean identity. Even today, new immigrants have to undergo this process of integrating and identifying themselves as citizens of Singapore to whom they owe their loyalty. Now, as the world enters troubled times, Singapore will face tough challenges. Being aware of our country's history will help us understand how our national consciousness evolved. It will also help our people understand the global developments of today as well as Singapore's position on international issues. I believe many of you are concerned about the growing tensions between the US and China. Their disagreement has placed other countries in a dilemma. No one wants to take sides, and Singapore is no exception. This is why I am discussing the tensions between the US and China and their impact on us. China has developed rapidly since its reform and opening up in the 1980s. It has risen to become the second largest economy in the world. This has significantly benefited China and the rest of the world in many ways. But China's growth has also reshaped the world order. The world's preeminent power today, the United States, has to accommodate an increasingly powerful and influential China. The US must recognize that stopping China's rise is neither possible nor wise. It also needs to seek constructive bilateral relations and interdependent economic ties with China. And as a global power itself now, China should put itself in the shoes of other countries and take into account their interests and sentiments. Only then can China live in peace and harmony with them. Only then can it be viewed as a magnanimous country, a partner willing to work with others for mutual benefits. Naturally, competition will exist between the US and China, but at the same time, both parties should also strengthen mutual trust and develop appropriate mechanisms to deal with unavoidable friction. Regrettably, and worryingly so, both China and the US have not found the magic pill to resolve their differences. Their tensions will not be resolved in the short term, and this will impact the whole world order. There are two major areas in which Singapore will be impacted. First, our relations with China and the US. Second, our economy. First, on our foreign relations. Singapore is good friends with China and also good friends with the US, and we want to remain good friends with both countries. The US is our major security partner. We buy advanced military equipment from them, including fighter aircraft and missiles. Our troops train extensively with US forces. In the US, at any one time, there are more than 1,000 Singaporean soldiers training in the US. So, we are not an allied country, but we have very extensive and close cooperation with the US forces. On counterterrorism, the two countries also have very close cooperation. We hope the US will continue to remain engaged in the Asia-Pacific region and continue to safeguard regional peace and stability. This helps to ensure the security and prosperity of the whole region. The US is also an important economic partner of ours. The value and scale of US companies' investments in Singapore far outstrip all other countries. These investments create many quality jobs for Singaporeans. We also benefit from extensive collaborations with US institutions, companies, and experts on innovation and research and development. With China, we have agreed to establish an all-round cooperative partnership progressing with the times. That's a long name, and it is very significant. We have extensive economic cooperation with China, including the 3 government-to-government initiatives. They are in Suzhou and Tianjin, and now in Chongqing. We have interconnectivity collaborations in Chongqing, and these are government-level initiatives. China is also our largest export market. Singapore companies have sizable investments in China, as Chinese companies do in Singapore. Our relations with China are unique. Apart from China itself, Singapore is the only sovereign country in the world with a majority ethnic Chinese population. Such shared heritage and culture help us to deepen our people-to-people ties and cultural exchanges. They also help to foster good relations, understanding, and partnership. But even as we engage and cooperate with each other, we must always remember that we are Singaporeans. We have our own history and culture, and also our own perspectives and positions. On international affairs, being a country with a Chinese majority can at times put us in a difficult position because our words and actions may be easily misunderstood by other countries. This is especially so when the US and China are at odds. If we support China, The US and other countries may think we do so because we are a Chinese majority country and therefore we accede to China. But if we support the US, China may also misunderstand. In fact, on occasions when Singapore and China held different views in the past, some of our friends from China asked us, since we share a common language, a common ancestry, and a common heritage, why does Singapore not share a common view? So this is a tricky issue, but also a very critical one. Our position must be clear. We must explain ourselves clearly. Our position is as follows. We must be principled in our approach and not swayed by emotion. Regardless of who we speak to, or whether we are speaking in Singapore, in Beijing, or in Washington, we hold a consistent view. When we can agree with either country, we will do so. When we cannot, we must maintain and explain our stand. We hope that other countries understand that Singapore is a multiracial and independent country with its own position on issues. And of course, Singaporeans must clearly understand what our national interests are and the government's considerations. Aside from external relations, US-China tensions will also adversely impact the world economy. Supply chains will be disrupted. Investments and R&D will be restricted. People-to-people exchanges will be constrained. Let me give you an example. The smartphones we use contain many components which are designed, manufactured and assembled in many different countries. So if you ask where a phone is made, it actually has been made in many different countries. That is the case for the iPhones, and that is also the case for Huawei phones. However, if the US does not allow US companies to use components manufactured in China, and this allows them to sell chipsets to China, then Chinese and American companies will have to develop their own microchips, components, smartphones, and telecommunications systems. That means when we go overseas, we may have to bring multiple phones, as we did many years ago when we visited Japan, because it used the CDMA system, while Singapore adopted the GSM system. In such a bifurcated world, we would still hope to be able to communicate with all our friends conveniently. So our bigger headache is, how do we talk to every country and be friends with every country? And which telecommunication system should we install in Singapore? The Chinese one or the American one? Because the Chinese would definitely have their own. They will not accept just having one system in the world and it being one that has no part for the Chinese. Singapore's economic growth, such that Singapore is a small and open economy, has benefited much from globalization. If the US and China cannot build mutual trust, the world will be increasingly polarized. Singapore's economic growth will then be affected, and our future will be a more troubled one. Singapore companies that export extensively to China will be impacted. So too will our companies that have factories in China and export to the US. Some people think that companies that decide not to manufacture in China may then come to Singapore, but that is not the case. Some companies like these are more likely to go to countries with a much lower cost base or nearer to the US or China. For example, clothing manufacturers will likely move their factories to Vietnam or Bangladesh or Cambodia. Electronics manufacturers will likely move to Mexico, and the furniture makers will likely move to the Philippines. Such companies will not move to Singapore. Overall, if US-China relations continue to deteriorate, it is bad news for the world. And for Singapore, it is also bad news. US-China tensions are already hurting confidence worldwide, but the deeper and broader impact I spoke about will only be felt after some time. Nevertheless, we must start preparing for it now, for Singapore to adapt to these new international realities.
This year, our economic growth has slowed significantly. This is primarily due to the weakening of global demand and international trade, which has affected our manufacturing sector and trade-related services. A temporary slump in electronics has impacted our overall economic performance, particularly related sectors such as precision and engineering and wholesale trade. Retail continues to be under pressure from online shopping. Thankfully, as of now, other sectors have not been affected. Retrenchment and unemployment rates remain low. This is a matter of great concern to us. Recently, I had a discussion with NTUC Secretary General Ng Chee Meng and his labor unions leaders. They reported that while workers are worried about their livelihood, fortunately, so far the slowdown has not significantly affected jobs. Therefore, the current situation does not warrant immediate stimulus measures. But if the situation gets worse, of course we will promptly respond with appropriate interventions to sustain the livelihoods of our workers. Like our union leaders, the government is also watching very closely our economic trends. We are prepared. We have experienced cyclical downturns like this in the past, and we are confident we can take this one in our stride. Although the external environment is not sanguine, we must not forget that we have some important strengths too. Compared to other countries, our position is much better. We don't have to look very far. Just look at the Southeast Asia area, look at the other countries in Asia and the other areas. We all know there is a difference. This year, we attracted several major investments, including one by the Finnish oil company Neste. The company invested more than 2 billion Singapore dollars to expand its renewable energy plant here. This is a huge project which will create many high-quality jobs for Singaporeans. The CEO of Nestle explained that they chose Singapore because of many factors. Why? Because we have excellent geography and business environment. We have advanced technology, infrastructure, and logistics. And more importantly, we have the best workforce in the world. The company particularly has high regard for EDB's planning and support. So Neste trusts our Economic Development Board, he trusts our workers, and he trusts Singapore. Let me quote what the CEO of Nestle said. He said, "The most valuable resource in the world is trust. But to find trust, one must earn it. And to keep trust, one must continue to earn it. And in Singapore, as Nasser said, we have found in Singapore, we found the right people that we can trust. So from this commendation, we can see that excellent reputation Singapore has among investors. Faced with uncertain future economic prospects, we need to work all the harder to maintain this trust that investors have in us. In the meantime, we will continue to improve our economic fundamentals to secure our long-term competitiveness. DPM Heng Swee Keat and the younger ministries are leading our economic transformation efforts, and these efforts are beginning to bear fruits. With the help of the government, our local companies are innovating, deploying digital technology to improve their operations, expand in overseas markets, and training for their employees. Tonight, I would like to use our favorite chili crabs. And this is a topic in our speech and not what we're going to eat afterwards. And I want to use this to illustrate the successful transformation of one company. In fact, there is much skill and management philosophy that goes into making delicious chili crabs. The Jumbo Group became well known for their chili crabs. With more than 30 years of history, it is now a listed company, and in recent years, it has also expanded overseas. Jumbo's success is due to the emphasis on training by both its boss as well as its employees. Now let us take a look at this video.
今年是第9年，如果跟外面的人讲我是厨师的话，大部分的人都不会相信我是一个厨师。一般人对厨师的印象可能要很老哦，年纪会比较大，然后可能会一个大肚腩。
因他背后有个老大，执行总厨黄仲礼。
我跟我老大的关系，他是一个我很尊敬的一个人啊，就是我从什么都不会，他把我教到一个现在的我。
我们老板比较舍得花钱投资在员工的培训方面。我这样10多年这样走来，大大小小的课程，我最少都有上了10多20个课程。他给的指示也是希望我能够在这个集团帮他带多一点年轻的厨师。
每个人都有每个人的潜能，不是每颗种子都能长成参天大树，所以就是因材施教。
这是2年前制作的一个节目。
A video produced 2 years ago. The chef who was interviewed, Ng Chi Yang, has learned much more about kitchen operations and management from his mentor, Chef Ng Chong Lei, and has also received other forms of training. Chi Yang has now been promoted to one of the executive chefs and now oversees a cluster of restaurants. I'm very happy to learn that Chi Yang is now married. He met his wife at Jumbo, and now they have 2 adorable kids. Jumbo not only serves delicious chili crabs, it also takes good care of the lifelong happiness of its employees. So keep it up. By emphasizing the nurturing and development of its staff, Jumbo has successfully retained Singaporean staff like Chong Lei and Si Yang. This is a signal achievement in the food and beverage industry, which usually has a high turnover. Many Singaporeans are reluctant to join the F&B industry as the work is hard and the hours are long. But actually, if the working conditions can be improved and the employees can be well trained and the company provides opportunities for growth and progression, then working in an F&B is not a bad choice after all. In fact, the Jumbo boss, Mr. Ang Jianming himself, has recently gone back to school. He joined Enterprise Singapore's Scale Up SG program. Scale Up SG program is a new program to help promising local companies grow rapidly and become leaders in their fields. The pioneer batch of 25 companies in the Scale Up were from diverse backgrounds from F&B, education, healthcare, interior design, furniture and maintenance sectors. If we put them together, collectively, they could have provided comprehensive services for an HDB township. Through ESG, Mr. Ang and 49 other business leaders recently attended a business leadership program in the US and learned a lot of real stuff. They made friends, shared experiences, and discovered potential opportunities to collaborate. Apart from this Scale Up, there are many other government schemes to support local enterprises to develop skills. We hope employers as well as employees will take up these opportunities. There are a few reasons why I talk about Jumbo. First, to remind workers to go for training. Secondly, to encourage businesses to keep transforming, improve their operations, and globalize. And to let our companies and workers know that the government supports you fully, to give our F&B a little puff so that more people will consider joining this sector. And of course, I would not fail to remind our young people to get married early and have kids. Kids are very adorable. The more the merrier. Therefore, Jumbo is a good example, an arrow that assists many birds. In fact, I would say that it is a very comprehensive example. The actual English translation is a jumbo example. Tonight, I have taken some time to trace our history and share my views on the international situation and our economy. The government is paying close attention to the international situation and its implications for us and our economy. The high level of trust that other countries and investors have in Singapore is our key advantage. It is also our precious asset. We must safeguard this trust with care and ensure that it is passed on from generation to generation. This will ensure that Singapore can continue to prosper and provide perpetual assurance for the livelihoods of Singaporeans. My concern is that the next 10 years will be more uncertain than the last 10 years. Like the weather that is ever changing, 1 minute it's extremely hot and the next minute pouring rain. We must therefore be prepared for this uncertain future, and as our forefathers, who were fearless, driven and are united, did, overcome our difficulties together. I firmly believe that if the government and the people are united, Singaporeans will have better lives, and Singapore will continue to shine on the global stage. Thank you.
Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has delivered his National Day rally speech in Malay and Mandarin. He will deliver his speech in English at 8:15 p.m. Stay tuned.
Tonight on 5. by the Bay and MediaCorp's National Day concert.
Make some noise! Yes, thank you everyone for being here to celebrate National Day and also Hari Raya Haji with us.
Now, this long weekend has given us not one but two public holidays. So what better way to celebrate it than to have our local talents perform in an evening of music and entertainment for you guys over 2 days.
Everybody!
Owe, 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 owe,
Exercise Zumba! Woo! Everybody!
When you turn off all the lights, that's a place where you can hide. Oh baby, rhythm is gonna get you in bed. Through the covers on your head, you pretend that you are dead. Oh baby, rhythm is gonna get you.
Everybody sing, rhythm is gonna get you! Come on!
Rhythm is gonna get ya. Rhythm is gonna get ya. Rhythm is gonna get you. Rhythm is gonna get you tonight.
One more time!
Oh, eh, oh, eh. Oh, eh, oh, eh. Oh, eh. Oh, eh, oh, eh. Oh, eh, oh, eh. Oh, eh, oh, Rhythm is gonna get ya. Rhythm is gonna get you. Rhythm is gonna get you.
Everybody!
Tonight.
Are you ready for the conga? Come on! Yeah! Joget, joget! Come on! Everybody, come on! Exercise! Come on, Merdeka generation! We're gonna exercise tonight! Woo! Look at Kata here! Look at Kata! Come on, follow!
Everybody, gather round now. Let your body move your feet. Don't you worry if you can dance. Let the music move your feet. It's the rhythm of the island, from that sugar cane so sweet. If you want to do the conga, you got to listen to the beat.
Ready? Everybody, yeah!
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. Though you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Go to your body, feel you got to do that conga beat. Rhythm is gonna get ya. Rhythm is gonna get ya. Rhythm is gonna get you. Rhythm is gonna get you tonight. Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Go to your body, baby, you gotta do that conga beat. Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. Right!
Happy birthday, Singapore!
Happy birthday, Singapore!
உயரத்தில் பார்க்கிறதோ குலுங்கி குலுங்கி சிரிக்கிறதோ கண்ணாடி முன்னாடி பேசுறதோ காதல் வசப்பட்ட அறிகுறியா பாத தெரியாம நடக்கிறதும் சிறகு இல்லாம பறக்கிறதும் உன்னோட நினைப்பில் இருக்கிறதும் காதல் வசப்பட்ட அறிகுறியா ராத்துக்கும் இல்லாம விழிக்கிறதோ போரண்டு போரண்டு படுக்கிறதோ கனவு கலைஞ்சு முழிக்கிறதோ காதல் வசப்பட்ட அறிகுறியா
Thank you very much.
Hey Siri, play me something new.
It was just past 1 when 2, 3 man from 4, 5 step to the door like oh my gosh, just show that cash in a back bag, run around the back and pull up the track cause yo, I just learned some jazz today, it's true. You gon' learn, hey.
Breeze 超强有力清除污渍，比普通的洗衣液更有效哦。你看 ，Breeze 把污渍去除得干干净净，有了它吃什么都不怕。
限期促销，现在购买 Breeze 洗衣液可以半价享有第2瓶。Tonight on 5.
aku tercipta oleh waktu, hanya untuk saling mencintai. Mungkin kita ditakdirkan bersama, merajut kasih, jalin cinta. Beradangku diperlukanmu, mengejarkanku. Apa artinya kenyamanan, kesempurnaan cinta? Berdua bersamamu, mengejarkanku. Apa artinya kenyamanan, kesempurnaan cinta? Kau dan aku tercipta oleh waktu, hanya untuk saling mencintai. Mungkin kita ditakdirkan bersama, merajut kasih, jalin cinta. Beradangku diperlukanmu, mengejarkanku. Apa artinya kenyamanan, kesempurnaan cinta? Berdua bersamamu, mengejarkanku. Apa artinya kenyamanan, kesempurnaan cinta? Tak pernah terbayangkan olehku bila kau tinggalkan aku. Hancurlah hatiku, musnah harapanku sayang. Beradang diperlukanmu, mengejarkanku. Apa artinya kenyamanan, kesempurnaan cinta? Beradangku diperlukanmu, mengejarkanku. Apa artinya kenyamanan, kesempurnaan cinta? Berdua bersamamu, mengejarkanku. Apa artinya kenyamanan, kesempurnaan cinta?
Well, I hope Singapore will always move forward and progress as a nation together. There will be challenges, but I need all of us to be able to work together and solve all the challenges together, no matter what happens. So, majulah Singapura!
This song is called 喜欢你. I hope you like it. 谢谢。喜欢你，给我你的外衣，让我想躲在你身体里。喜欢你，借我你的梳子，让我用柔软头发吻你。喜欢你，这床上的雾气，仿佛是你的爱在呼吸。喜欢你，那微笑的眼睛，连日落也看作春雨。我喜欢这样跟着你，随便你带我到哪里，你的脸慢慢贴近，明天也慢慢的慢慢清晰。我喜欢你爱我的心，清楚我每天设置感应，我知道。 欢你那微笑的眼睛，连日落也看作春雨。我喜欢这样跟着你，随便你带我到哪里，你的脸慢慢贴近，明天也慢慢的慢慢清晰。我喜欢你爱我的心，清楚我每天设置感应，我知道它在诉说着你承诺言语。How are you guys doing all the way at the back? Woo! Hello! 我喜欢这样跟着你，随便你带我到哪里，你的脸慢慢贴近，明天也慢慢的慢慢清晰。我喜欢你爱我的心，清楚我每天设置感应，我知道它在诉说着你承诺言语。我喜欢这样跟着你，随便你带我到哪里，你的脸慢慢贴近，明天也慢慢的慢慢清晰。我喜欢你爱我的心，清楚我每天设置感应，我知道它在诉说着你承诺言语，我知道它在诉说着你承诺言语。Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, I want to commend MediaCorp and Gardens by the Bay for organizing this National Day concert, because it's really important getting Singaporeans together to commemorate and celebrate National Day. Music is yet another tool for us to evoke our strong sense of loyalty, support, cohesion. You look at songs like Home, Stand Up for Singapore, Count on Me, and whenever we hear those songs, it evokes certain emotions, certain collective memories, sense of loyalty, not just to Singapore, but a sense of belonging, support for each other, is also to the commemoration of the National Day.
People didn't believe these children could learn, but I did. Starting a special care school is a dream come true for me. My joy is very simple, to see my students happy. My husband and I even sold our house to raise funds. Money was tight, but I could never turn away a child I could help. Like them, I'm always learning, and the children are my best teachers.
Will you be my friend for life? Will you stay here by my side? When times get tough, can I count on you? I trust I can, but is it really true? I don't wanna sound like I doubt you, 'cause I trust you with all my heart.
Tonight on 5.
Now I'd like to invite Madam President and Mr. Muhammad on stage to join us for the pledge taking and national anthem.
Accompanying them is CEO of Gardens by the Bay, Mr. Felix Low, CEO of MediaCorp, Ms. Tham Lok Keng, as well as Dr. Koh Po Kun, Deputy Secretary General of NTUC.
Thank you. Stand as we take the pledge. We, the citizens of Singapore, pledge ourselves as one united people,
regardless of race, language, or religion, to build a democratic society based on justice and equality, so as to achieve happiness, prosperity, and progress for our nation.
Mari kita rakyat Singapura sama-sama menuju bahagia. Cita-cita kita yang mulia, berjaya Singapura. Marilah kita bersatu dengan semangat yang baru. Semua kita berseru, majulah Singapura, majulah Singapura. Marilah kita bersatu dengan semangat yang baru. Semua kita berseru, majulah Singapura, majulah Singapura.
Thank you, Rakima, for leading us in singing the national anthem. Before Madam President and Mr. Mohammed take their leave, let us all come together, celebrate our love for our country with one of the most iconic National Day songs of all time.
Yeah, in fact, in just a moment, we'll have both singer and songwriter on stage performing together as they lead us in song. So feel free to sing along, wave your flags, and capture the significant moment on your phones.
Yes, you'll have Madam President, Mr. Mohammed, Kit Chan, and Dick Lee all on stage at the same time singing this rousing song with some of Singapore's finest talents.
So, without further ado, let's welcome Kit Chan and Dick Lee with Home.
Whenever I am feeling low, I look around me and I know there's a place that will stay within me, wherever I may choose to go.
I will always recall the city, know every street and shore, sail down the river that brings us life, winding through my Singapore.
This is home to me, where I know I must be, where my dreams wait for me, where that river always flows. This is home, surely, as my senses tell me. This is where I won't be alone, for this is where I know it's home.
Whenever troubles to go through, we'll find a way to start anew. There is comfort in the knowledge that home's about his people too.
So we'll live our dreams together, just like we've done before.
Just like the river which brings us life, there'll always be Singapore. Let us hear you out.
To me, where I know I must be, where my dreams wait for me, where that river always flows. This is home, surely,
big thank you once again to Gardens by the Bay for this beautiful venue. So from all of us here on stage, good night. Bye.
Thank you so much. You have been wonderful audience. So much energy. Thank you.
Variety engkau bertemu kita 全世界跟着我在摇摆 Malayan girl sera Mudumai kondada
Download the Toggle app now and catch up for free. Tonight on 5.
To the peak, we'll be the ones limitless in what we seek. We'll be the ones to touch the future unbound, traveling at the speed of sound. We're the ones to watch over you, the ones to watch over us, the ones to watch over you, the ones to watch over us. For our home above all.
A brand new look for SPC, a commitment to delivering a new level of experience. Whether you want to refuel or stop by our 24-hour Choices store, it has never been more convenient. Energize your drive with SPC Level, formulated for ultimate urban driving. SPC is the first in Singapore to implement the Stage 2 vapor recovery system. It ensures cleaner air for everyone. SPC keeps getting better.
Hey, show you something. Wow, your daughter's new flat? So nice.
You know, she and her husband are paying off their housing loan using just their CPF savings. No need for any out-of-pocket cash.
Hey, we oldies have perks too. We can use our HDB flat to make our retirement financially easier.
We can right-size to a smaller flat or rent out extra rooms for extra income, right?
Or you can opt for the lease buyback scheme. I can continue to live in my own home and still get some money.
Is it?
Yes, the scheme lets you sell part of your remaining lease back to HDB. My wife and I are both 65 years old and our 4-room flat has 60 years left. So we kept 30 years and sold 30 years of lease back to HDB. We got a lump sum of $75,000. On top of that, we will get $1,000 cash every month from CPF Life for our entire lives.
Wow, sure.
Retirement's financially easier if you use your HDB flat.
Can you learn this?
Your cable TV is ending this month. Don't worry, we're here to help. Just for this month only, Singtel is giving you free 1 year of Singtel TV and 1 year of 1 Gbps fiber broadband, free wireless router, plus free 1 year of Singtel TV food and leisure pack, and free 1 year of history and crime pack. So make the switch to Singtel today. Call 1609 or visit any Singtel shop now.
To fight today's pollution, a vacuum must excel at removing fine dust. So before you buy, ask these questions. Does it provide 185 air watts of powerful suction? Does it have anti-static carbon fiber filaments capturing microscopic particles such as pollen and bacteria? Do cyclones generate 79,000 Gs and trap fine particles down to 0.3 of a micron? And will they retain constant suction power? Is it powered by an advanced digital motor running up to 125,000 RPM? Will it intelligently adjust power for different floors? Does its sealed system capture 99.97% of fine particles? So it releases cleaner air. Pioneered and patented. Only a Dyson works like a Dyson.
People didn't believe these children could learn, but I did. Starting a special care school is a dream come true for me. My joy is very simple, to see my students happy. My husband and I even sold our house to raise funds. Money was tight, but I could never turn away a child I could help. Like them, I'm always learning, and the children are my best teachers.
Will you be my friend for life? Will you stay here by my side? When times get tough, can I count on you? I trust I can, but is it really true? I don't wanna sound like I doubt you, 'cause I trust you with all my heart.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister.
My fellow Singaporeans, good evening again. This year, we commemorate our bicentennial, 200 years of Singapore's modern history. We began in January at the Singapore River. Since then, many community groups, businesses, schools, and even individuals have marked the bicentennial in their own ways and reflected on their own histories. I recently attended the Eurasian Festival. This marked 100 years of the Eurasian Association and showcased our unique Eurasian history and culture. Earlier, in April, 5 Indian dance groups held a combined performance, the Natya Yatra, at the Esplanade. They were celebrating 100 years of Indian classical dance in Singapore. There have been many events in the heartlands too. In Teck Ghee, we organized Happily Ever After, then and now, to celebrate the diverse and changing wedding customs in Singapore. Some 90 couples, old and young, took the occasion to renew their wedding vows. You can see them. It was a meaningful and joyous event. For Jalan Kayu, former residents recreated what their kampong looked like in the good old days, including the barber chair along the 5-foot way. And they had one of the old residents, Uncle Ang Achai, who told vivid stories about life in the 1960s, almost like Lei Tai So Gong Gu. He had served in the police reserve unit and helped restore order in Geylang during the 1964 racial riots. Uncle Ng also helped to rescue residents during floods. So the young people who think that floods are a very unusual thing, ask him which year. Of course, he couldn't remember. Because it happened many years. Uncle Ng also took part in our very first National Day Parade, 1966. In this year's parade, we were honored to have the leaders of our 3 closest neighbors, Brunei, Indonesia, and Malaysia, as our guests. And hundreds of thousands of us have visited the bicentennial experience at Fort Canning. The vivid reenactments brought our rich and complex history to life and reminded us why we are proud to be Singaporean. We had planned to close the show after the September school holidays, but we've received so many requests to extend it, so we've decided to extend the bicentennial experience to the end of the bicentennial year. And I hope you will all go and see it if you haven't done so already. It's well worth it and you won't forget the experience. All these activities help us trace our long history and appreciate the broader context that has shaped and created modern Singapore. In our journey, we overcame many difficulties, adapted to drastic changes in our world, and blazed bold paths forward. As we look towards the future, we will need this resourcefulness and resolve more than ever. We have a full agenda. In my Malay speech earlier, I spoke about education and upgrading and the importance of practicing our faiths in open and inclusive ways to strengthen our unity and harmony. I spoke about Islam primarily, but it applies to all faiths. In Mandarin, I spoke about external challenges, particularly what US-China tensions mean for us. I also discussed the economic situation and how we are preparing workers and companies to cope, short-term and long-term. These are important issues which concern all Singaporeans. In my English speech, I want to talk about three other important things. First, enabling every young person to succeed, regardless of his or her background. Second, supporting people to work longer as we are living longer. And third, protecting ourselves from climate change and renewing our city for the next century. Let me start with how we are giving our young the best possible start in life, so that anyone who works hard will have a chance to succeed regardless of starting point or family background, because that's what meritocracy in Singapore is about. We've made good on this promise by investing heavily in education. Our starting point used to be primary 1. School brought everyone up to speed, not just on academics, but also basic health and development. We introduced dental checkups as well as vaccinations. If you are underweight in primary school, you may remember the school milk scheme too. Generations of children have been through our schools. They received a sound education and good health care and graduated better educated than their parents. Recently, Save the Children, an international NGO, ranked Singapore the best place in the world for a child to grow up in. And last year, the World Bank published a Human Capital Index. This measures the knowledge, skills, and health that a child born today can expect to attain by age 18. Among 157 countries, Singapore ranked first. So when they launched the index in Bali at the IMF World Bank conference, they invited me to go and be interviewed and share our experience in a very brief 15 minutes, not quite a National Day rally, how we made this journey. But the journey is not over. We are going further. We want to start earlier in a child's life because these early years make a big difference to his development. Parents play an important role, but a good preschool education can make a crucial difference. And that's why several years ago, we made a major shift to improve preschool education. Let me share what we've done so far and what more we plan to do. First, we've doubled full-day preschool capacity to almost 180,000 places. It's enough places for every child aged 3 and above. Young parents in newer estates like Sengkang and Punggol are much happier. And their MPs too, because the queues have shortened. Queues at the preschools and queues at MPS. Second, we've upgraded the preschools. The new HDB void deck centers are better designed, better appointed, and we've built some mega centers too with even more comprehensive facilities, like this PCF Sparkle Tot Center at Punggol. It looks like a holiday resort, but the kids are supposed to study quite hard there. The children have plenty of space to run around and enjoy a wider range of activities. And when I visited, these kids were in their cooking studio making pizza. They asked me to pretend to be the teacher. I said, I don't know how to make pizza, please show me. Which is what they are doing. Third, we set up MOE kindergartens. By operating kindergartens, MOE gains direct experiences, improves curriculum design, and ultimately raises standards across the industry. MOE kindergartens are also a new preschool model because each one is located together with a primary school. And each kindergarten offers all 3 mother tongue languages and provides a bilingual environment just like a primary school. Today we have 24 MOE kindergartens, and we will more than double the number in the next few years. Fourth, we are giving preschool teachers better training and career progression. We've set out the National Institute of Early Childhood Development, NIEC, to upgrade training for preschool teachers and raise their standing. NIEC enrolled its first students this year. So these are NIEC students. They're actually kindergarten teachers, or will be kindergarten teachers. Some are fresh trainees, others are experienced teachers, like Palanya, who's also called Sheila. Sheila started out as a preschool teacher. Over time, she upgraded herself with a diploma in teaching and an advanced diploma in leadership. Now she's a vice principal at a PCF preschool. Sheila really enjoys working with children, and she's very good at her job. Last year, MOE recognized her as an outstanding preschool mother tongue language teacher. But Sheila aspires to do even better. Recently, she enrolled in NIEC to specialize in Tamil language teaching. So with dedicated teachers like Sheila, our children are in good hands. Well done, Sheila. Fifth, we continue to make preschool more affordable. The government funds the anchor operators and partner operators to keep fees down. And all parents receive significant subsidies for childcare, with low-income parents receiving substantially more. Still, for middle-income parents, preschool fees can take up a chunk of their household budget, especially if 2 or more kids are in preschool at the same time. Like the Low family, for example. They are middle income, both parents are working. They have 2 sons, Kalen, who is turning 5, and Kyler, who is 2. Both boys attend a government-supported preschool. To help families like the Lows, we will enhance preschool subsidies. The Lows currently do not qualify for additional means-tested subsidies because their household income exceeds the current maximum income, which is $7,500. We will raise this income ceiling to $12,000 a month. And this will extend the means-tested subsidies to 30,000 more households, including the Lows. On top of this, we'll also increase the quantum of preschool subsidies across the board. I show you how it works out. Before the changes, Mr. and Mrs. Low pay about $560 per month for each child's preschool. The enhanced subsidies will knock off a third of their preschool expenses, which will then go down to around $370 per child. Later on, when Kaylin and Kyla enter primary school, the family's expenses will go down even further. Because primary school itself is almost free, you have to pay a few dollars miscellaneous fees. But if the boys need student care after school in the afternoons, it will cost the Lows about $300 per child. So it's even lower than the $370 which they'll be paying after the enhanced subsidies. In the medium term, we aim to bring down full-day preschool expenses to around that level, which means the cost of primary school plus after-school student care. So $370 coming down to around $300. We need a while to get there, but we are working towards that. Recently, several PAP women MPs led by SPS Sun Xueling surveyed young parents on preschool. Understandably, the parents were concerned about affordability. The MPs made an important point that preschool should be like housing and healthcare, where we have a good and affordable government-funded option for all Singaporeans. There's a private option if you want, but for many Singaporeans, in fact, the majority, the government-supported funded option is high quality and more than satisfactory. I agree with them. For housing, we have HDB. For healthcare, we have the restructured hospitals. Similarly for preschool, we should have good quality, government-supported choices available to all Singaporeans. This is, in fact, our policy. Today, just over half of all preschool places are government-supported. Over time, we will bring this up to 80%, just like HDB. And we're putting a lot of resources towards this. Already, the government spends about $1 billion a year on early childhood education. And this will more than double over the next few years. Hopefully, with all these improvements, parents will no longer think of preschool as an expensive phase of bringing up their children. The younger ministers have a few more ideas to support couples to have more kids and to keep HDB flats affordable. But I will leave these goodies to them to make the announcements later. Meanwhile, I'll be counting the number of babies born and hoping for the number to go up. I want to update you on one more program, and that is Kids Start. We piloted Kids Start 3 years ago to give extra help to 1,000 children from less privileged families. The Kids Start team advises and supports the parents, often a single parent, on nutrition, child development, on parent-child interaction. We are very happy with the results, and so are the parents. Let's take a look at the video.
I'm a single father of two. Before Kids Start, I didn't know how to take part and play a role as a father to teach them something that they really need to know.
我的孩子之前 JV 是属于比较内向，然后要上学就哭，叫他醒来他就要装睡，就是知道我们会给他去学校。
At first I shy, but I really love my kid. Because of them, I want them to learn together. Kids Start taught me how to involve myself and my kids in terms of education. It's a great bonding between me and my daughter Khadijah.
从中我会认识到孩子，哇，真的不一样了。他把他的感受讲出来，他还会告诉我，妈咪，学校的饭很好吃。
My daughters learn a lot of things. There's a memory from the first day that they really can't talk at all. But today, They the one who tell me what's right. When I go Kickstart, I feel there's family members who are willing to teach me and guide me. I really look forward to be closer with them.
真的很谢谢有这种我在没有时间锻炼的时候给我这种帮助，然后所以我真的感触得到。
Kickstart is a good program. I'm confident we are on the right track. We still need to follow up a few more years to assess more exactly its benefits. But for each new cohort of babies, there's no time to lose. So we will expand Kickstart to reach another 5,000 children over the next 3 years. Then we'll take stock again how to expand Kickstart further. The commitment to do our best for every child is deeply embedded in our education system. That's why we heavily subsidize school fees from preschool to university, poly, and ITE, so that every child can afford a good education. I recently received a letter from an NUS law student, Kwek Louis. Louis wrote about how she felt a sense of inferiority when she was growing up, because many of her classmates came from better off families. And let me read from her letter. She said, as she grew older, she realized that this was an extremely misplaced sense of shame. My parents had done nothing wrong. They'd supported me throughout my life and gave me the best they could. A few years before Louis entered NUS, her family ran into difficulty. Louis worried about becoming a burden on her family. She already had one sibling in university and another about to start. And even after she started her law course, financial concerns were frequently on her mind, buying books, a laptop, school trips, and other activities. But she applied for and received a bursary, which significantly eased her financial worries. MOE has done a comprehensive review of tertiary fees and bursaries. First, MOE looked at whether our universities can operate more economically. Two of them, the Singapore Institute of Technology, SIT, and the Singapore University of Social Sciences, SUSS, are more applied and do more industry attachments and internships. Their operating cost per student can be lower, especially as student intakes grow. So, MOE will lower the annual fees for the full-time general degree programs in SIT and SUSS from around $8,000 now to $7,500. Second, MOE will significantly enhance government bursaries. For university courses, we will increase government bursaries from up to 50% of general degree fees today to up to 75%. Let me show you on a chart. For a general degree program in NUS, like economics or computer science, full fees are about $8,000 a year. Currently, a lower income student would pay around half that, $4,000 a year, if he uses his bursary fully to his fees. With the enhanced bursary, he'll pay only $2,000 per year. Similarly, for polytechnic diploma programs, we'll increase the bursary coverage from up to 80% of the fees today to up to 95%. For a poly diploma, full fees now $3,000. With a bursary, a lower income poly student currently pays about $600 a year. After we enhance the bursary, he will pay only $150. I have given examples of lower income students. Actually, 6 in 10 of students in polys and universities are eligible for government bursaries. So these enhancements will benefit many middle income students too. Students in government-funded diploma and degree programs at ITE, NAFA, and LaSalle will also be covered. I want to say something about one particular university course, and that is medicine. It's very expensive to train a medical student. Hence, medicine has the highest course fees of all the university courses. Today, after government subsidies, medical school fees are almost $29,000 a year at NUS and $35,000 a year at NTU. And these are not small amounts. We should not let the cost of medical school deter good students from studying medicine. In fact, we want doctors to have diverse educational and family backgrounds. On the education front, the recent medical school intakes have included more poly graduates, and this year we had one IT graduate for the first time in NUS Medical School. But on the socio-economic front, we should do more to encourage lower income students to do medicine. Therefore, we will enhance government bursaries for medical school to make them significantly more generous than bursaries for other courses. And if you add together the government bursary for medicine plus other bursaries from the university, then lower income students will now pay at most $5,000 per year to study medicine. And this balance can then be covered by student loans with much less difficulty. So if you are a student, you're worried about your finances, but you have an ambition to be a doctor, I say don't worry about the money, that will be taken care of. Go for it. All these fee and bursary adjustments I've talked about for both medical and non-medical courses will apply to both existing and new students from the next academic year. The point of these changes to fees and bursaries is not just the dollars and cents. We are determined to make our education system as accessible as possible. We want every Singaporean son and daughter to have the opportunity to receive a good education and start well in life, regardless of family circumstances. Students from less privileged backgrounds must be confident that they will get financial help if they need it to see them through their education. They should neither feel disadvantaged nor inferior, comparing themselves to better off classmates, nor should they be deterred from pursuing a course just because of money. This is fundamental to maintaining Singapore as an open meritocracy. Apart from government bursaries, our universities, polys, and ITE also raise funds to create their own bursaries. And these bursaries often have names associated with them, like the E.W. Barker Bursary in NUS, named after our founding law minister, or the Class of 1995 Term Bursary in NTU. The Class of 1995, that means the class which graduated in 1995, must have come together, raised some money, endowed a bursary, remind the next generation, when it comes to your turn, go thou and do likewise. And this personalizes the bursary award. The recipient is grateful to the donor is happy to have done a good deed, and both donor and recipient honor the person after whom the bursary is named. And in time, hopefully, the recipient will make good, remember, and be moved to pay it forward. Louis, the NUS student who wrote to me, received such a bursary. Hers was a Kwa Gyok Chu bursary, which the NUS Law School had established in my mother's name. So she wrote to me, I think because I was one of those who contributed to the bursary fund, and she wrote in her letter, "Thank you for opening my eyes to the compassion and generosity of our society, for being the helping hand and for setting my mind at ease. This is a kindness that will stay with me through my life, and I hope to be able to do my part and help others in similar positions in the future. Thank you, Louis. We wish you all the best for your studies. We try very hard to kindle the same warm personal feeling with government bursaries. But alas, it's not so easy to write a letter like that and say, "Dear government, thank you very much." So to complement the government bursaries, I hope the universities, polytechnics and ITE will set up more bursaries of their own in people's names. And I hope the alumni and community will contribute generously too. The government will match your donations up to 3 times for the newer universities and up to 1.5 times for the rest. Our institutions often raise funds for new buildings and professorships, and this is always meritorious. But bursaries can make a crucial difference to the recipients, and they have that extra human touch. If you donate towards a bursary, you enable some promising young person to get a good start in life, and this strengthens our sense of obligation to each other and the bonds that link us all together as one society. Our education system gives young Singaporeans a head start when they enter the job market, but our support doesn't end there. As people progress in their careers, Skills Future will help to keep their knowledge and skills up to date. We need to do this because jobs and skills are turning over faster than ever. And we also need to keep on reskilling ourselves for another reason. Singaporeans are living longer and mostly also want to work longer. So my next topic is about helping Singaporeans work longer, if they wish to do so. Our life expectancy at birth, the latest figures, which came out just a few weeks ago, is now nearly 85 years. It's the longest in the world, now even longer than Japan. And this means about half of us can expect to live longer than 85. And we all know many people who are older than 85. Quite a few turned up for my National Day observance ceremony at Teck Ghee, including this sprightly lady, Madam Liang Druat Eng, and she is 102. In the rally in 2007, when I talked about aging, I checked up the numbers and reported that we then had 500 centenarians, people aged 100 and over. So this year for my speech, I said, please update the number. And in just over a decade, the number has more than doubled. Now we have 1,300 centenarians, including Madam Liang. That means every MP has about 14 of them. Should look them up. And I hope some of them are watching my speech on TV. The good news is that Singaporeans stay healthy for longer too, protected by MediShield Life. Most seniors, in fact, don't want to stop working. We're healthy for longer, we live longer, but we don't want to spend more years idle in retirement. We want to stay active, engaged, feel a sense of worth and purpose. Zumba, and more things. Also, many of us want to build up bigger nest eggs for when we eventually retire. Therefore, many of us have multiple careers in a lifetime. Enabling seniors to continue working productively takes a joint effort. Employers must redesign their training, jobs, and careers around the abilities and strengths of the older workers. The older workers may not be as strong or quick as their younger colleagues, but actually this is not a problem in many jobs, where we can redesign the job or we can use technology. And this way, employers can continue to tap on the skills, knowledge, and experience of our older workers. Employees, on their part, must adopt the right mindset. We must be ready to adapt, learn new things, and take on different responsibilities. We cannot just be satisfied doing our old jobs well, because many jobs will change, and some jobs will disappear. Shorthand typists and telephone switchboard operators do not exist anymore. Reskilling ourselves must start early, even when we are in our 40s and 50s, if not even earlier. But 40s and 50s, you're not quite so young anymore, not yet old, and you have to pay attention. Because if you do it then you will have useful skills which will be valuable, we hope, as you near retirement age, and you can keep improving even in our 60s. Of course, the government will fully support employers and employees in this endeavor. I visited Workforce Singapore's Careers Connect Center in January. There I met Naharia Muhammad Noor. She used to be a bank teller. Naharia is the one in the red tudung. Nowadays, banks need fewer tellers because of online banking, ATMs, and now VTMs, or video teller machines, which are more advanced than ATMs. Naharia took up an offer by her employer to retrain as a customer service officer for VTMs. She doesn't stand around at the VTMs. She's sitting at a console in an ops room, monitoring multiple VTMs. So when customers have problems with a VTM, they press the help button on the machine, and Naharia's face pops up on the screen. And she advises customers what to do. And she told me usually the first question she asks is, "Are you real or are you AI?" So she smiles and she goes, no, I'm real. And the customers may be a bit doubtful at first, because the AI can be very good, but very soon they can tell she has the human touch. As a result, Naharia is doing a new job, serves more customers than she used to, and can be productive and employable for many more years. Well done, Naharia. I should also commend Naharia's employer, DBS. DBS has made great efforts to modernize itself and to adopt technology. In the past year, it was named the best bank in the world by 3 major industry publications. Most importantly, DBS has been working very hard to retrain its employees. It's shown care and concern for its people, even as it transforms itself. In fact, if it didn't show care and concern for its people, it's unlikely to become the best bank in the world. So DBS has the right approach, and I encourage other companies to emulate DBS's example. Good job, lah, DBS. It's not just big companies that can retrain and upgrade workers. So can SMEs. This is Chan Ban Kiong. He's 64, much older than Naharia. Ban Kiong has been in the marine industry for over 30 years. He works for Mencast Marine, which makes and repairs ship propellers. He used to make the ship propellers by hand. First, he crafts a mold out of sand to create a prototype propeller. Then he uses this aluminum prototype to make a second mold. Finally, he casts the bronze propeller itself. It's hard work, and it requires experience and skill. Mencast decided to increase productivity by using 3D printers to manufacture the propeller prototypes. But they still value the experienced eye of their older workers to ensure the quality of the work. So they are training Ban Kiong and 8 colleagues to operate their 3D printers, and all of them are over 60. Now their work will become safer and easier, and the production time will be faster by 1/3. So it's win-win-win for the workers, the company, and customers too. And that's the way it should be. Well done, Menkas and Ban Kiong. I hope more companies will likewise help their older workers remain employable well into their 60s. The government will do its best to support older workers and the businesses that employ them. Last year, the Ministry of Manpower, MOM, set up a tripartite work group on older workers to study the issue. I met the work group members last month for lunch. They told me they had had intense discussions. Even at lunch, the discussions were quite intense. Why? The older workers wanted to be certain of continued employment for longer. When can I retire later? Can I be re-employed longer? Can I be re-employed more years at a time? But employers were worried about business costs and the uncertain economic outlook. And they said, I support you, I understand your aspirations, but I need more flexibility. Because I don't know what will happen. And if I go broke, your job's gone too. In the end, the work group reached consensus. They made 4 key recommendations. First, to raise the retirement age from 62 today to 65. Second, to raise the re-employment age from 67 today to 70. Third, to increase CPF contributions for older workers. And fourth, to achieve all this in gradual steps by about 2030. I think these are sensible recommendations. The government accepts them in full. Let me explain them a little bit more, and I will start with the CPF for older workers, which is a bit more complicated. Today, CPF contribution rates for workers begin to taper down after the workers turn 55. So you see the age of the workers and the different contribution rates. Up to 55, you pay the full rate. Beyond 55, it steps down. Beyond 60, it steps down again. Beyond 65, it steps down. And it continues on as long as you're working. We will raise the rates for workers above 55. We will take the first step in 2021. So you'll see the rates go up for these groups of workers. And we will take subsequent steps after that. And the whole process will take 10 years or so. About that, but it will depend on economic conditions. And by the time we are done, those who are 60 and below will all get the full rates and all pay the full rates, and then the step down will only start here. So you pay the full rates all the way up to when you're 60, and then the rates come down at 65, come down again at 70, and at 70 they level off. So this is the first change, to increase CPF for older workers gradually over the next 10 years or so. Next, in 2022, a year after we raise the CPF the first time, we will start to raise both the retirement age and re-employment age for all employers. The retirement age will go from 62, which is what it is today, to 63 in 2022, and eventually to 65 by 2030. And the re-employment age will go from 67, which is where it is now, to 68, also in 2022, and eventually to 70 by 2030. And therefore, by 2030, we should reach our first and second objectives, which means retirement age goes to 65, and the re-employment age goes to 70. The government will help businesses to adjust to these new arrangements. We'll implement a support package for them, and DPM Heng Swee Keat will announce it in next year's budget. As a major employer ourselves, the government will take the lead for public officers. The public service will raise its retirement and re-employment ages 1 year early, 2021 instead of 2022. And I encourage private sector companies which can do the same also to do so. All these changes to the retirement age, the re-employment age, and the CPF rates will support older workers to continue working longer and to be more financially independent. Let me add one last point here to be absolutely clear. We are not making any changes to CPF withdrawal policies or CPF withdrawal ages. Let me say that once again in case you didn't take it down. We are not making any changes to CPF withdrawal policies or to CPF withdrawal ages. You can still take out some money at age 55, and you can still start your CPF payouts from age 65. All this remains exactly the same. And if you hear anybody tell you something different, please ignore him or her. And if it comes to you on WhatsApp from a friend, please delete it and tell your friend. Don't share it with more friends and confuse people, because that will be fake news. Pofma will catch you. Next, let me talk about renewing our city and our home for the next century. I will start with climate change. Climate change may seem abstract and distant for many of us, but it is one of the gravest challenges facing humankind. Our young people instinctively appreciate the seriousness of the issue. When the National Youth Council recently asked young people what their vision was for Singapore's future, many spoke about the environment. Let's hear from them.
Climate change is a big issue. As you can see, Singapore is getting warmer. We can all do our part.
I hope that in 2025, Singapore will be a model example for sustainable practices.
My hope is for Singapore to be more conscious of its consumption.
Climate change is a big issue, and I think we should all take a part to make a change by recycling materials and not wasting resources.
What is climate change? What is it about? Why should we be concerned? Let me try and explain a huge and complicated subject simply and briefly. Human activity is pumping more and more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We produce CO2 when we drive a car or take a plane or run a manufacturing plant or use electrical appliances at home, because nearly all our electricity is generated from natural gas, which is a fossil fuel. The CO2 builds up in the atmosphere, it traps heat from the sun, and causes the planet to warm up. Already, the Earth's average temperature has gone up by 1 degree Celsius compared to pre-industrial times, over 100 years ago. 1 degree Celsius doesn't sound like much, but it is very significant. Furthermore, temperatures are continuing to rise faster and faster. Ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica are melting into the oceans, and this is raising sea levels around the world. The UN currently projects that sea levels will rise by up to 1 meter by the end of this century. 1 meter, about 3 feet, is just 80 years from now. But the scientists' estimates have been going up, so sea levels may quite possibly rise higher and faster than that. Global warming is also making the weather more extreme. Droughts are getting more severe and prolonged. Rainfall and storms are becoming more intense. Singapore is already feeling the impact. Our weather is palpably hotter, rainstorms are heavier, and this will very likely worsen over the next few decades, within the lifetimes of many of us. A recent Swiss study found that by 2050, just 30 years from now, several cities in the world will experience unprecedented climate shifts, and it found that one of them will be Singapore. We must prepare for the impact of climate change on Singapore. There are many risks and consequences. New diseases, more frequent pandemics, food shortages, forced migration of displaced populations, even wars. And because we are a low-lying island, Singapore is especially vulnerable to one grave threat, and that is rising sea levels. In the 1960s and 70s, floods were common in Singapore, especially during the rainy season. That's why Uncle Ng Achai from Jalan Kayu, whom I told you about earlier, had to rescue so many stranded residents whenever it flooded. When we had high tides, monsoon drains in low-lying parts of Singapore would fill up almost to the brim, even if it wasn't raining. And if it did rain, it would flood. Gan Kim Yong told me when he was a child, his family lived in Hong Kong Street in Chinatown, where his father ran a shop. Hong Kong Street is next to this one. This one is Temple Street. But it looked like this also. When there was an exceptionally high tide, which happened a few times a year, the tide water would rise up from the drains onto the 5-foot way in front of the shop, even without rain. And so his father had to build racks to stack up the goods out of the reach of the water. To Kim Yong, who was then a boy, this was great fun. I don't think that is Gan Kim Yong. But actually, it was a serious matter. These old flooding problems are now largely resolved. We improved the drainage system. We required buildings to be built on higher platforms, at least 3 meters above the mean sea level. 3 meters sounds a lot, because a person, most of us are less than 2 meters tall. But 3 meters isn't actually that high, because at high tide, the water can go up 2 meters above the mean sea level. And that leaves only 1 meter buffer to cope with other factors. For example, heavy rain. So if it rains, it fills up a little bit, and you're still okay. And the water has somewhere to go. So because of this 1 meter buffer, we've managed to deal with our flooding problems thus far. But with global warming, if sea levels rise by 1 meter, our buffer is gone. Because when it's high tide, 2 meters above that, you're already water reaching the 5-foot way. We will have no more buffer. And if heavy rain coincides with a high tide, the water will have nowhere to go. And we will literally be in deep water. Like Bangladesh, whenever they're hit by a cyclone. Or to take an extreme example, like New Orleans, much of which is below sea level. Here you can see how the city was completely flooded when Hurricane Katrina hit it in 2005. So what can we do? 3 things. Understand climate change, mitigate climate change, and adapt to climate change. And let me explain them one by one. First of all, we have to understand what climate change means specifically for Singapore. Is it hot weather, cold weather, hot weather, extreme weather, drought, intense rain, water levels, sea levels, and therefore what do we do? So we've set up a Center for Climate Research Singapore, CCRS. I visited them earlier this year. They have a team of scientists and meteorologists and supercomputers to model the weather and do research. They showed me the records they have, which go back more than a century, including these old weather diaries, which I'm looking at. And they go back to the 1930s, which are meticulously kept, were meticulously kept at the weather station on Mount Faber. CCRS is cooperating with their counterparts in neighboring countries to study in more detail how climate change is affecting Southeast Asia. And they're finding that Singapore, being near the equator, is more vulnerable to climate change than the global model suggests. Second, we must mitigate climate change. What does mitigate mean? It means we must do our part to reduce CO2 emissions. Singapore has joined international efforts to reduce emissions. We are part of the Paris Climate Agreement, and we have committed to slow down and ultimately cap our CO2 emissions by around 2030. To help achieve this, last year, we introduced a carbon tax. Each of us can do our bit to promote sustainability and mitigate climate change, like remembering to switch off the lights, reducing waste, and reusing and recycling more. In Singapore, we generate a huge amount of waste, whether from excessive packaging, food waste, or electronic waste. And these all have to be disposed of and often incinerated, which then generates more CO2. Our landfill is at Pulau Semakau, but eventually that will fill up, and then we will need Bukit Semakau. And then Gunung Semakau. So we have to find a sustainable solution. And this is where young Singaporeans have been doing their part, like Farah Sanwari, who is passionate about sustainability. Farah co-founded Repair Kopitiam a few years ago to teach others how to repair damaged electronics appliances, furniture, toys, and clothing, so that these items can gain a new lease of life and you can use them longer instead of throwing them away prematurely. I think we need more young Singaporeans to be like Farah, to be problem solvers, innovators, scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs. As the song says, be prepared to do our part. This is the grand challenge for their generation. Although Singapore may not be able to stop climate change by ourselves, we can contribute to solutions, and we must do our fair share. Then we can be credible, asking others to reduce their emissions too, and work towards a global solution to climate change. But unfortunately, such a global solution is still very far off. So we must work for the best, but be prepared for the worst. Therefore, the third thing we must do is adapt to climate change, and especially rising sea levels. We will need local measures to protect individual buildings and developments, and we've been doing this. For example, we've built MRT stations with elevated entrances. When you enter an MRT station, you need to climb up a few steps before you go down the escalator. And this is flood protection for our MRT system. And if we need to raise the steps higher, well, we will do that one day. We also require new developments to be built on higher platforms. Instead of building 3 meters above mean sea level like before, they must now be at least 4 meters above mean sea level. And for critical infrastructure like Changi Airport Terminal 5 and Tuas Port, we are raising the platforms even higher, at least 5 meters above mean sea level. But local measures will not be enough. We have many older buildings. These cannot be lifted up or transported to higher ground. In fact, large parts of Singapore are low-lying, and we need to protect these low-lying areas as a whole. Let me show you the topography of Singapore. This is a map of Singapore showing the heights. The light green is the lowest parts, the dark green a little bit higher, the beige are the hills, and the dark brown are our mountains. But there are not very many dark brown pieces, so I don't think we can all retreat to live on Bukit Timah. Now let me show you the lowest parts, those which are up to 4 meters above mean sea level. That's where all the blue stuff comes in. You see, the island looks much smaller if those one day become at risk. When sea levels rise, all these parts will increasingly be at risk. not underwater yet, but at risk like Chinatown used to be in the old days, high tide, rain, trouble. And if you look carefully, there's a long stretch along the east coast to the city, and zoom in a little bit, you might be able to see where your house is. So not only will property values be affected, but safety and livability also. And it won't just be if your house is in the pink area you're in trouble, but the whole city, because the roads and the trains run through the low-lying areas. Hospitals, schools, workplaces, all there. We can't lose a big chunk of our city and expect the rest of Singapore to carry on as usual. Therefore, beyond localized measures, we need to protect entire areas. And the way to do that is to build coastal defenses. We've studied our whole coastline in detail, and we've divided it into different segments. Some are more vulnerable than others, and we need different strategies to protect each of them. And we will have to prioritize the work, starting with the more critical segments, and in particular, East Coast City, or City East Coast, and also Jurong Island. I will talk about City East Coast, which is a long stretch comprising the city area and then the eastern coastline. Let's look at the city area first. We built the Marina Reservoir and Marina Barrage to protect the city area from flooding. Many of us enjoy visiting the Marina Barrage to picnic and fly kites on the top of the pump house, especially if we have little kids. But PUB did not build the pump house for kite flying. Its real purpose is to house 7 giant pumps. That's why it's so tall. When it rains heavily during high tide, these pumps pump water out of Marina Reservoir into the sea, so that rain falling in the city area can then drain into Marina Reservoir. When sea levels rise, 1 pump house will not be enough. We will need to build a second pump house on the opposite end of the barrage, and PUB has planned for this. So that's the city. For the eastern coastline, we'll need possibly other solutions. We've looked at other countries for inspiration. In particular, we studied the Netherlands. The word Netherlands itself means low-lying lands. Nether, low-lying lands. And half of the Netherlands is at most 1 meter above sea level. In fact, 1/4 of the land is actually below sea level, what the Dutch call polders. And polders is land, this is one of them, that the Dutch have reclaimed from the sea. They first build a seawall in the sea, in the water, then enclose an area, then you pump out the water behind the seawall, and you create dry land. And that dry land can be lower than sea level, and then you have to keep on pumping water out. The Dutch are famous for their windmills. But do you know why the Dutch originally built windmills? It wasn't to take tourist pictures. It was to pump water out of the polders and keep the land dry. I don't think windmills will do very well in Singapore. The only windmill we had in Singapore was Holland Village. And even that one is gone now. But polders are a serious option for us. We are building a small polder at Pulau Tekong to gain some experience operating one. This is on the northwest part of Pulau Tekong. If you come in from the north to land at Changi, you can see it. You can see we are building the seawall here, enclose the sea, and we will level off the land behind that and pump out the water, and this will be a polder. And we will use the new land for SAF training. Polders are one option to protect our eastern coastline, because Instead of just building a seawall along the coastline, you extend out with a polder, build a seawall further out. You not only protect the existing low-lying pink areas, but you extend out and create more land reclaimed from the sea, which we can use for housing and other valuable purposes. So that's one possible solution for the East Coast, to build polders along the coastline. But there are other alternatives. For example, we could reclaim a series of islands offshore, from Marina East all the way to Changi. Then we join up the islands, connect them with barrages, create a freshwater reservoir behind them, like that, which would be similar to the Marina Reservoir. And this solution will make PUB very happy, because we will have another big reservoir and enhance our water resilience. Our 4 taps will become more reliable. What I showed you are just artist impressions. I prepared them for this speech to give you a sense of the possibilities. We have not done engineering drawings yet. But we will examine all the options carefully, and when the time comes, we will decide what is the best way to do it. This problem does have good engineering solutions, although they will all cost money. How much will it cost to protect ourselves against rising sea levels? My guess is probably $100 billion over 100 years, quite possibly more. If we only have 10 years to solve the problem, we won't have the time or the resources to do it. But because this is a 50 to 100-year problem, we can implement a 50 to 100-year solution to this problem. And in Singapore, long-term problems, we can make long-term solutions. Not everywhere, but in Singapore, yes, we can. We should treat climate change defenses like we treat the SAF, with utmost seriousness. Work steadily at it, maintain a stable budget year after year, keep your eye on the target, and do it over many years and several generations. That way we can afford it, and when we need it, we will have it ready. Both the SAF and climate change defenses are existential for Singapore. These are life and death matters. Everything else must bend at the knee to safeguard the existence of our island nation. There is one difference between the two. With the SAF, we hope never to go to war. And if you have a strong SAF, you may deter threats and avoid having to go to war. But with climate change, we know for sure sea levels will rise. And the only uncertainty is whether they rise a few decades earlier or a few decades later. Therefore, we'll implement our climate change plans progressively and keep them flexible. But we must start now and sustain the effort, as the Dutch have done over the centuries and as we have done with the SAF. We must make this effort, otherwise one day our children and grandchildren will be ashamed of what our generation did not do. Beyond protecting ourselves from rising seas, we also have long-term plans to remake and take full advantage of our coastline. One of these plans is the Greater Southern Waterfront. I first spoke about this in the 2013 rally. Since then, we've worked out more definite ideas. And let me first sketch out the overall shape. The GSW comprises 30 kilometers of our southern coastline, from Gardens by the Bay east all the way to Pasir Panjang. And it's about 2,000 hectares of land. It's 6 times the size of Marina Bay, or in other terms, about 2 Pongos. The GSW includes the PSA city terminals, which are at Tanjong Pagar, at Brani, and at Keppel. and they also include the Pasir Panjang terminals. By 2027, the city terminals will go to Tuas, where we are building a new port. And later on, in 2040, the Pasir Panjang terminal will also go to Tuas port. And this will free up prime land for redevelopment. It will be an opportunity to reshape the Greater Southern Waterfront into a new place to live, work, and play. And let me start with live. Here is Keppel Golf Course, Keppel Club. It's close to 2 MRT stations, you can see them, and also to Labrador Park down here, the nature park, nature reserve. The lease is expiring in 2 years' time, so this will be one of the first Greater Southern Waterfront developments. And there's enough land here to build 9,000 housing units. Not quite so fast, but 9,000 housing units. HDB and private housing with waterfront promenades, with greenery and open spaces. And that's just a start, because there's space and land for public and private housing elsewhere in the Greater Southern Waterfront too. And with the GSW, the size of 2 Punggol's, you get a sense of the possibilities. Think of it as Punggol by the bay. Next, I go to work, the commercial areas. Several big companies already have offices in near Labrador Park, like Google or Cisco or Unilever. And we will develop more office space in the GSW, like this one, which is Maple Tree Business Park, which will bring in more jobs. People can work near where they live and live near where they work, and this will create life and activity during the day and at night. I take it this is at night. Finally, I come to play. Actually, I got there already. The fun part. There are many possibilities for fun and recreation. We will start by redeveloping 2 old power stations in Pasir Panjang. These are the Pasir Panjang power stations. They used to supply electricity back in the 1960s, but they were decommissioned long ago. And we can find creative new uses for them, just like the way we made St. James Power Station near Vivo City into a nightlife destination. Next, after Brani Terminal moves out, we can develop Pulau Brani together with Sentosa. We will build new attractions on Brani, just like we have Universal Studios on Sentosa, which is this block here. And we will also revitalize Sentosa's beach areas and expand its nature and heritage trails to keep its island character. We will also link up the GSW with all the surrounding green areas so that you have a whole connection from West Coast Park to East Coast Park, and also from rail corridor all the way down to Sentosa. And with a new green heart at the center, Singapore will be even more of a city in a garden. I have already received one special request. When we discussed these plans in Cabinet, Ng Chee Meng put his hand up. He said, NTUC is very grateful to the government for Downtown East. How about a Downtown South? So I said, okay, we will do that. We will set aside land for the labor movement to build a resort, probably on Pulau Brani. We will make this gesture. We will make this gesture to thank our workers for all their contributions to the nation, because Singapore is for all of us. Our city today comprises multiple layers and the imprints of different eras. The Greater Southern Waterfront will add yet more layers to the city. Over the centuries, people have come to Singapore from different lands, bringing with them their identities, cultures, and beliefs, their hopes and dreams, their passions and aspirations. And slowly they wove these strands together to become Singaporeans and to build today's Singapore. And the layout and the architecture of our city reflects this richness and complexity. Faint traces of ancient Singapore survive even today. In the 14th century, there were settlements at the mouth of the Singapore River and near Bukit Larangan, known as Fort Canning Hill. Soon after the British arrived in 1819, they made a map of Singapore. It's a very interesting map. Let me orientate you. This is the Singapore River, the river mouth. This is the Padang. In those days, it was bigger. And this is Fort Canning Hill. And along the map, if you look carefully, you can see a linear feature all the way here up around Fort Canning Hill, and is marked historical lines of Singapore. And along this line, there is a river to be seen. So these historical lines of Singapore are actually an ancient defensive line. It's a line of defense. It's an earth wall dating back hundreds of years. And the river which runs along the earth wall today is the Stamford Canal. So the wall itself is gone, but Stamford Road follows the line of that wall. So today, if you walk along Stamford Road, you're walking along the ancient wall of Singapura. There's history there. Parts of our civic district and central business district are still laid out according to the first town plan that Raffles and his team drew up 200 years ago. Many of the colonial buildings remain, often restored and repurposed. So the former Supreme Court and City Hall have become the National Gallery Singapore. Over 2 centuries, we have built and rebuilt generations of buildings. Today, we've created a distinctive city skyline and a vibrant waterfront all around Marina Bay. When we first reclaimed Marina Bay, Marina East, Central and South, 40 years ago, they were empty, a blank slate. For some years, we left the new land fallow. Definite plans only came later, as we developed a clearer sense of what the city needed and began putting the building blocks in place. Now, a new downtown is taking shape in Marina South, anchored around the Marina Bay Financial Center and Marina Bay Sands. Marina Bay is still far from fully developed. Meanwhile, we're already looking ahead for our next major move. Our modern port dates back to Raffles, who recognized Singapore's qualities as a natural harbor. Nearly 50 years ago, we converted the wharves at Tanjong Pagar into our first container terminal. In 1991, as Tanjong Pagar reached its limits, we made a major decision to reclaim land at Pasir Panjang to build a new container terminal. At that time, PSA was handling 6 million containers a year. They call them TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units. But PSA had audacious plans to build a port to handle 6 times that number, 36 million TEUs. People will siao. Building Pasir Panjang Terminal was a considerable act of faith. But we backed PSA up and PSA delivered. And last year, it handled 36 million TEUs and more. Now we are making another leap, building Tuas Port, where PSA can double its volumes. When PSA moves out of the city and Pasir Panjang terminals, these old spaces will once again be vacant. Another blank slate, And a new generation will have another opportunity to imagine and to build here some part of their vision for Singapore. I hope they'll remember to place a marker somewhere to remind themselves that PSA used to be there, and that it was the same daring and ambition, the same drive for excellence and determination to prevail that made PSA a success and will make the Greater Southern Waterfront a reality. Over the years, I've talked about many major projects at National Day rallies. These are all progressively taking shape. In 2013, I described Jewel at Changi Airport. At that time, Jewel was just a concept and an ambition. Now we have completed it on time and within budget. Kudos to the Changi team. Singapore has a spectacular new gateway to the world. Many of you have visited, and we are all rightly very proud of it. What we talk about, this government, we will deliver. In the same way, we are realizing our other ambitious plans. Punggol Digital District, Jurong Lake District, Changi Terminal 5, redevelopment of Paya Lebar Air Base, Tuas Port, and of course, the Greater Southern Waterfront. All these will not be done in a decade or even in one generation. There will be space for successive generations to fill with their hopes and dreams. Each new generation will leave their mark on our city as their predecessors have done. This bicentennial year, as we commemorate our history and progress, we also commit ourselves to improve on what we have and build a better Singapore for our children. All this depends on Singaporeans remaining one united people and having an honest and capable government working together with you, for Singapore. The next few years will be very demanding. We have to hand over smoothly to a new generation of leaders and continue to strive to realize our ambitions. My team will work with you to build this jewel of a nation so that Singapore will always be a vibrant, thriving city where opportunities are open to all and our children and their children will have a bright future. Let us strive together to create this future. Let us unite as one nation to build tomorrow's Singapore. Thank you and good night.
Download the Toggle app now and catch up for free.